This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Arsenal, City and Liverpool all win. Are there any sneaky routes into their teams? Last week's Draft Zone picks turn on the style, but did you snap any of them up? And with another quick turnaround for Gameweek 32, who are this week's must-haves? Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about Draft FPL. I'm Dom Crofts. I hope you are well. And today we're looking back at Gameweek 31, where it's as you were at the top of the table, while Nottingham Forest are the big winners at the bottom. And with another quick turnaround ahead of Gameweek 32, we are all over free agency with more recommended players who could help you win your draft league. But let's start with a roundup of those mid-week fixtures. And it all started on Tuesday night with Newcastle United in action at home to Everton. It finished 1-1 at St James's Park. Alexander Isak scoring his 5th goal in his last 4 games. He's got an assist in that time as well. He has 15 goals for the season now, and he has the most goals per 90 minutes in the Premier League this season of every player in that league. But it was not enough for Newcastle to win this one. A late DCL penalty earning a point for Everton. It finished Nottingham Forest 3, Fulham 1 at the City Ground. Forest with a big 3 points there, and Morgan Gibbs-White channeling prime Zidane with a goal and an assist for the tricky trees. Bournemouth 1, Crystal Palace 0. Antoine Semenyo coming off the bench for Bournemouth to set up the winner for Justin Kluivert. And an amazing stat from FPL Natty on X, taking the 19 games in the Premier League from the 10th of November to this week into account. Only 4 teams have taken more points in that time than Bournemouth. They've taken 35 points from 19 games. So if the season had started on the 10th of November, they would be in the race for the Champions League. It finished Burnley 1, Wolves 1 at Turf Moor. Burnley are now unbeaten in their last 4 games, 3 of which have ended in draws. Aït-Nouri's amazing form for Wolves continued. He got another goal. He's now got 2 goals and an assist in his last 5 league games, and he scored in that FA Cup defeat to Coventry as well. It finished West Ham 1, Spurs 1 at the London Stadium. Brennan Johnson scoring again for Spurs. He's got 5 goals and 9 assists for the season now, and 6 returns in his last 5. But Kurt Zouma earned a point for West Ham. And then on Wednesday at the Emirates, it finished Arsenal 2, Luton 0. Lots of changes for Arsenal in this one, with the likes of Reece Nelson, Emile Smith-Rowe and Alex Zinchenko all returning to the starting lineup. But a comfortable win over Luton, who failed to score in the Premier League for the first time since Game Week 12, which was 19 game weeks ago. Brentford 0, Brighton 0. Still no Brian Mbeumo for Brentford, who was a late substitute in this one. Brighton had 24 shots but failed to score. That's the most shots they've ever had in a Premier League game without finding the back of the net. And at the Etihad, it finished Manchester City 4, Aston Villa 1. Lots of changes from both sides in this one, with the likes of Watkins, Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne all missing out. Phil Foden did play though, and he was the difference between the sides with a hat-trick. And then on to Thursday night, first up with Liverpool. They beat Sheffield United 3-1. Alexis McAllister returning again. He scored Liverpool's 2nd, and he's now got 3 goals and 4 assists in his last 6 games. Cody Gakpo was also on the score sheet in that one, but a Conor Bradley own goal cost Liverpool defensive owners clean sheet points, with Sheffield United getting on the score sheet at Anfield. And then the final match of the game week saw Chelsea beat Manchester United in a thriller. It finished 4-3. Chelsea led 2-0 in this one. Cole Palmer scoring yet another penalty, but 2 goals from Alejandro Garnacho turned the game on its head, increased the pressure on Poch, only for Palmer to score 2 more goals in injury time, including another penalty to win it for Chelsea. And now the pressure is off Poch and back on Eric Ten Hag. So those are the results from a busy old week in the top flight. But which players channeled their inner Leo Messi, and which players channeled their inner Eric Jemba? It's time for winners and losers.
FPL Draft Zone. Winners and losers.
First up for winners is Morgan Gibbs-White. He's been a recommendation of ours for the last 2 weeks now, and in that time he has got a goal, 2 assists and 20 fantasy points. Forest needed a talisman, and Gibbs White seems to have stepped up to the plate just in time. On his day, he is an outrageous footballer. He's a World Cup winner with England at under 17 level, and I think under a different manager he could easily have earned himself an England cap by now. He will be crucial to Nottingham Forest's hopes of survival, as will another recommendation from last week and another winner this week, Mr. Chris Wood, who scored again against Fulham. He's now got 3 goals and an assist in the last 4 games he's played since returning from injury. He's got 11 goals for the season. He is in the 100 points club now, and 3 of his remaining 7 games are against fellow relegation strugglers in Everton, Burnley and Sheffield United. He helped keep Newcastle up when they were struggling, and he is doing the same with Nottingham Forest. So get ready for some incredibly underwhelming, have you got Wood, jokes, because Big Chris is delivering on the biggest stage. Other winners include the Bournemouth backline, who kept a rare clean sheet in the win over Crystal Palace, and the Brentford backline, who held out against a rampant Brighton to earn a 0-0 draw. That's their first clean sheet since Gameweek 24. Cole Palmer obviously deserves a mention for his one-man show against Manchester United as well. And a few players we recommended last week who turned on the style in Gameweek 31, in addition to Gibbs White and Wood, who were 2 of those recommendations. Harvey Barnes, who got an assist for Newcastle's goal in the draw against Everton. Brennan Johnson, who scored again for Spurs after returning to their starting 11 against West Ham. And Antoine Semenyo, who continued his frankly ridiculous run of flip-flopping between returning and not returning with another return. A reminder of his stats since Gameweek 25. Gameweek 25, 8-point return. Gameweek 26, no return. Gameweek 27, 7-point return. Gameweek 28, no return. Gameweek 29, 13-point return. Gameweek 30, no return. This Gameweek 31, 3-point return. Yes, I know it's not ideal. He got a yellow card. He only played 45 minutes, but he got that assist. We are taking that as a win. And that means that in Gameweek 32, by the way, if you have got Semenyo, bench him, because he ain't returning, my friends. No chance. Also a word for Calvin Bassey, who we also recommended as a pick against Nottingham Forest because of Forest's inability to defend set pieces. Bassey did not score, but his defensive partner Tosin did from a corner, so we were not far off in that one. And yeah, I think I'm going to take that as a win too. As for the losers, we have to talk Fulham defenders again. Outside of Tosin, they make another appearance in the section that no one wants to be in. Since they destroyed Spurs and shot up to the 4th best team in terms of clean sheets, they have been hemorrhaging goals. 3 against Sheffield United and now 3 against Nottingham Forest. And next up, it's free-scoring Newcastle United, who can't defend but do know how to find the back of the net. And with West Ham away and Liverpool at home to follow, it is starting to feel like we might all have missed the boat with those Fulham defenders, and it could already be the time to bin them off, because it looks to me like their players are already on the beach. And Thomas Frank gets a shout out in the losers section as well for failing to start Brian Mbeumo again. And Mbeumo was brilliant in Ivan Toney's absence at the start of the season. They struck up a great partnership last season as well, but he seems super reluctant to start the Cameroon midfielder right now, and it is costing draft managers who got him in early dear. So that's some winners and losers for you, but who walked off the pitch, ripped their shirt in 2, and revealed a big old Superman logo underneath? It's time to reveal our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
And this week's hero could have been Cole Palmer, but we have gone for Philip Foden, who stepped up to the plate and scored a hat-trick for Manchester City against Aston Villa. I owned him last season. He frustrated the hell out of me, but he is a different beast this season. He's now got 14 goals for the campaign. He's picked up 7 assists as well. He's scored 2 hat-tricks. He got 20 points this game week. And if you came up against him in a draft head-to-head, he will have almost certainly single-handedly put your side to the sword. City's run-in looks the most straightforward out of all the top teams. They've got the likes of Palace, Luton, Forest and Wolves to come. So Foden, I'm sure, will be targeting his first ever 20-goal season, and I can see him getting it. So let's just hope that Gareth Southgate works out the best way to utilise him for England, because he could be the difference between Euros glory and Euros failure. Phil Foden, big congrats to you. You are our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the week.
But if Phil Foden is ripping out that Superman logo, who is our Lex Luthor? It's time to reveal our fantasy supervillain of the week.
Supervillain of the week. Supervillain of the week. Supervillain of the week. Supervillain of the week. I hate his guts.
And this week's supervillain is Unai Emery, who seemed to wave the white flag from the outset against Manchester City, dropping the likes of Pau Torres, Leon Bailey, Yuri Tielemans, Alex Moreno, and there was of course no Ollie Watkins either. He was injured. It seems like Emery chose a game against the treble winners. The treble winners away from home, by the way, to rest half his squad when their next game is Brentford at home. Brentford at home. If you're going to rest half your squad, do it in the game you're probably going to win anyway, rather than the one where you're coming up against the champions of Europe. Emery handed City 3 points before the game had even begun with that team selection, and draft managers who were hoping to see a bit of fight from Villa were left very, very disappointed. A humiliating night for Villa, a frustrating night for draft managers, and that is why Unai Emery is our supervillain of the week.
Supervillain of the week. Supervillain of the week. Supervillain of the week. Supervillain of the week. I hate his guts.
So, game week 31 is finished, finito, zipped up, done and dusted, and it is another very quick turnaround for game week 32. And by the time you're listening to this, you need to be thinking long and hard about free agency, because the chances are that those waivers are already done. And just as we did last week, we're going to rattle through the fixtures and we're going to flag some players who should be available in the vast majority of leagues and who could help you gain valuable points in the race for that draft title. So first up on Saturday, it is the lunchtime kickoff between Crystal Palace and Manchester City. Games between these sides are often a lot closer than you would expect. It finished 2-2 at the Etihad earlier this season, and City sneaked a 1-0 win at Selhurst Park last March. The severity of that Ederson injury seems like it could be a little more long-term than first expected. He wasn't on the bench against Arsenal in game week 30. He wasn't on the bench against Aston Villa either, which means that City are one injury away from starting Scott Carson in goal against Real Madrid. And that means that Ortega Moreno has the shirt right now, and that means that he is a solid pickup if you're in need of a goalkeeper or a route into that Manchester City defence. City are in must-win territory now. They have a track record of being quite good at that, so having defensive coverage could be key between now and the end of the season. Rico Lewis earned a start against Villa in the absence of Kyle Walker, so if you didn't pick him up last week, he could be another good signing this week. And Jack Grealish got a start as well and played the full 90 minutes against his old club. And with Real Madrid on the horizon, there's every chance he gets another start at the weekend. Palace, on the other hand, well, they're the definition of inconsistent under Oliver Glasner. 1 win, 2 draws and 2 defeats in his first 5. Michael Olise was missing again from the squad against Bournemouth, but he might make the bench for this one. He could be a decent pickup if he's not been nabbed already. His injury record is, of course, a major concern, but with that double coming up in game week 34, if he can stay fit for longer than 5 minutes, he could reward you with points in the long term. After City, it's Liverpool for Palace, away from home at Anfield, but then the fixtures do become a little more kind with the likes of West Ham and Newcastle at home, and then a trip to on-the-beach Fulham. In the 3 o'clocks on Saturday, it's Aston Villa against Brentford. At this stage of the season, it is vital that you invest in teams who have still got something to play for, and Aston Villa certainly do tick that box. They're still gunning for a place in the Champions League. Ollie Watkins missed their defeat to Manchester City along with half their squad, but you would expect the likes of Bailey, Tielemans and Torres to return for this one. I've got a sneaky suspicion John Duran might start again as well. Even if Watkins is fit, I think he'll start on the bench, so Duran could be a solid short-term option up front. And even though Brentford kept a clean sheet against Brighton, they did give up 24 shots against the Seagulls, and their overall defensive record suggests that whoever starts up front for Villa will get chances in this one. Villa were, of course, battered by Manchester City in the week, but they did keep a clean sheet in game week 30 against Wolves, and their next few fixtures have got more clean sheet potential. After Brentford, they go to Arsenal, but then it's Bournemouth at home and Chelsea at home. So the likes of Konsa, Carlos and Torres could be worth thinking about for the next few weeks, although the Moreno-Digne conundrum means it's probably worth avoiding either of their left-backs. Brentford have had a disappointing season, but they also have to keep their focus as they are not out of relegation trouble yet. After this game, their fixtures do become much better, some of the best actually. They've got Sheffield United at home, Luton away, Everton away, Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, and Newcastle at home. So that is 6 lovely fixtures for Brentford. So if there is a Wissa or even an Mbumo still available in your league, it is well worth getting them in now ahead of those games. And I would even argue that if you can get a trade for Ivan Toney over the line, you should see some very decent returns. He is, of course, expected to leave Brentford in the summer, and I am sure he will want to go out with a bang. So if you have someone like a Gabriel Jesus or a Julian Alvarez or a Carlton Morris, and you think you could convince a rival manager to do a deal, then get it done. At Goodison Park, it's Everton against Burnley. Everton are without a win in 13 games now, but their last victory did come against Burnley in game week 17. Burnley are a better team now than they were then, but with the home crowd behind them, I would expect the Toffees to get back to winning ways in this one. Beto and Calvert-Lewin have been sharing minutes up front. DCL came off the bench to score for Everton from the spot against Newcastle in midweek. I think he will get the nod ahead of Beto for this one. And as a one-week punt, I think he could be a decent pickup if you're in need of a forward. Everton are far from prolific, but this is a must-win game. They are 4 points clear of the relegation zone, and a win here would go a long way to securing their survival for another year. Dwight McNeil has been a regular name on this podcast in recent weeks as well. He is not the definition of glamorous, but if Everton are going to win this one, he is likely to be involved in anything good going forward, so he gets another mention this week. Burnley, well, they've been in a good moment, but I think they're going to come unstuck in this one, so there's no one from Vincent Kompany's side I would push for. Fulham against Newcastle United at Craven Cottage. Fulham look like they're on the beach already, and after this one we will know for sure. There was some fighting talk from their players after that defeat to Forest, some saying they didn't do themselves justice, so you would hope to see a positive reaction, but we will see. Newcastle will give them opportunities, so Muniz owners can be confident of a return. And I do fancy Willian to start this one. He replaced Harry Wilson after just 33 minutes against Forest, and he's always a threat going forward. So if you need a midfielder, he could be a good one-week punt as well, especially given Newcastle's defensive options are at a minimum. As for the Toon, you've probably missed out on Harvey Barnes by now, but Elliot Anderson and Jacob Murphy could be available if you fancy the Geordies to do something here. And Joe Willock is getting more minutes again too. He featured against Everton, and he has featured in Newcastle's last 5 games. In my view, all of those Newcastle assets are a tad too risky. But if Fulham are already thinking about their holidays, perhaps they will serve you well this week. At Kenilworth Road, it's Luton against Burnley. I saw Luton in person on Wednesday, and they played really good football against Arsenal. They are a threat going forwards every time they play. Alfie Doughty was taking up really good positions on that left-hand side, and Andros Townsend got in behind Alex Zinchenko a few times as well and looked dangerous. Chong did not start against Arsenal. He came off the bench, but I would expect him to be back in the side for this one. He's got 3 goals in his last 6 games, and those stats tell you that he could be worth bringing in, even though he's not a player that ordinarily you would look at and go, I want him in my draft team. Bournemouth have got this good run going back 19 games, where they have the 5th best record in the Premier League. Semenyo is likely to be back in the starting lineup for this one, but it's already written in the stars, of course, that he's not going to return. Justin Kluivert did score his 2nd goal in his last 4 games in midweek, and Philip Billing had an XGI of 0.46 against Palace, and he has played more than an hour this week for the first time since game week 18. At Molineux, it's Wolves against West Ham after Wolves drew with Burnley. Gary O'Neill talked up the possibility of Hwang Hee-chan returning to the side against West Ham. He said, Hee-chan has a chance for the weekend. I would expect Craig Dawson and Channy to definitely be around for the Nottingham Forest game. barring any hiccups. They'll be training with us before the weekend, so it's just whether they're able to do enough to show me that they're ready to go back in. So it sounds like there's a reasonable chance he'll be on the bench against West Ham, and then he looks certain to be involved against Nottingham Forest in the following game week. And that all means that Hwang Hee-chan is a must pick up. Remember, he's got 10 goals and 3 assists for the season so far in 22 appearances. West Ham have only lost 1 of their last 6, and if he's still available in your league, Michail Antonio is still a recommendation from us. West Ham have Fulham and Palace next, and Antonio has looked decent since returning from injury. In the late kickoff on Saturday, it's Brighton against Arsenal. Arsenal take on Bayern Munich on Tuesday, but I do expect them to go strong in this one, meaning a route into their team is not going to be easy. Leo Trossard may start on the left again, with Martinelli still recovering from that injury. He's probably your best hope of picking up an Arsenal player who's likely to get minutes. Brighton have João Pedro back from injury, so if he's free, snap him up. And Danny Welbeck was rested at Brentford, so could come in to face his old club. On Sunday, there are 3 more games to look forward to, starting with Manchester United against Liverpool. Liverpool will go full strength in this one, I'm sure, so there will be very limited options in their team as well if you want a bit of them. Your best bet is probably gambling on players from the bench and hoping they take advantage of tired legs late on. So Harvey Elliott and Cody Gakpo are probably the standouts there. United could give Mason Mount a run out if you want to go there. Personally, I wouldn't. It's Sheffield United against Chelsea at Bramall Lane. One terrible team taking on a massively underwhelming one. I can actually see Sheffield United getting something out of this one. So Ben Brereton Diaz could be worth getting in if he is still available. Chelsea's last clean sheet came 9 game weeks ago, and I do not think they're going to get one here. Gustavo Hamer has also been excellent recently for Sheffield United, so he could be worth thinking about if you're in need of a midfielder. Away at Liverpool is perhaps not a game to include in his stats, but against Fulham he had an XGI of 0.46, and against Bournemouth it was 0.74. He has a goal and an assist in his last few games. If you think Poch's team will be too much for the Blades, Conor Gallagher and Mykhailo Mudryk are the standout options for them of the players who are likely to be available in free agency. And the last match of Game Week 32 sees Spurs take on Nottingham Forest. Brennan Johnson will be looking to continue his fine run of form when he takes on his old club. He is still available in around 15% of draft leagues according to data from Draft FC. Timo Werner remains high on the XG stats list for his last 5 matches as well. And again, with Forest unable to defend those set pieces, a Romero or a Van der Ven could prove a worthwhile pickup from an attacking perspective. At least Spurs tend not to keep clean sheets, so in all likelihood you would be relying on an attacking return from them. As for Forest, only Kevin De Bruyne has a higher XA over the last 5 games than Morgan Gibbs-White, and it is not inconceivable that he might still be floating around in a free agency somewhere near you. So those are a few players in Game Week 32 who could change the course of your season, hopefully in a positive direction, and that is almost it for today. The deadline for your waivers is Friday the 5th of April at 11 a.m. I suspect that deadline will have already passed by the time you listen to this podcast. Game Week 32 starts on Saturday the 6th of April. There is an 11 a.m. deadline to set your teams, and you have until then, of course, to make the most of free agency. We will be back on Sunday night with all the fallout from another weekend of Fantasy Premier League action. Please don't forget to subscribe to us if you haven't already, and you can also give us a follow on social media too. We're at FPL Draft Zone on X and Instagram. We're not on TikTok, we're not on Facebook, we're not on YouTube, and we're not on OnlyFans. That last one is only for when we, like Fulham, are beach ready. Until next time, good luck with all things draft, and bye for now.